So how do you approach using the burp in your own practice?
Well, it's an extension of what we've been talking about. Once I feel that my air is working for that day, which doesn't take long for me, but you know, I've been doing it for a long time. And I do a little lip buzzing, as I demonstrated. Then I add some sirens to just playing on the burp. Because I feel like before I get on the instrument, I want to make sure that the air is moving through the lips, and that I'm able to maximize my efficiency with the air, and really minimize the amount of work that I'm doing here. So I might start, and it doesn't matter really where you start. I think it's important that you, when you're doing your preliminary exercises, that you're not looking at a book, that you're focused and really listening to yourself carefully and being aware of what your body is doing. So. So in many ways, I could be completely do my warm-up within a few 5 or 6 minutes on the burp, just by doing some big sirens going up and down in the low register and back up. And this, what I'm listening for is the beginning note and the ending note that are the same, that they have the same resonance.
So a lot of trumpet players feel like by practicing on the mouthpiece, it can make them play tightly or make their sound smaller after doing it for a long time. How do you approach that kind of an idea?
Well, I think that one of the main points of using the burp is just to go back and forth between the burp and the horn. So that's one way that you get rid of the difference, because you are in a slightly more flexed position when you're buzzing on the mouthpiece. But you don't, if you were to maintain that same position on the horn and use your ears, you wouldn't stay in that with that same tension. So for instance, I play a note. Now, if I transferred that same feeling exactly, it would sound pretty awful. But after practicing, that's a better sound, which is slightly more relaxed than what I did to create that same pitch on the burp. But the point is not to make it exactly the same, but it is to do the setup the same way as when you do it on the burp. So if I'm playing on the burp intervals, there's a similar feeling when playing on the horn. Okay, so even though the action wasn't exactly the same amount of muscle, I don't want to call it tension, of flexibility, muscle expansion, here, when I got on the horn, after doing this for years and years and back and forth, I knew that when I wanted to make that particular sound on the trumpet, that's what my embouchure had to do. And the brain takes care of that calculation.
So what is the advantage then to playing on the burp then in the first place?
Well, the biggest advantage is that you get to hear what's going on here and here before it gets in the instrument. And the truth is that I hear people play on the trumpet with certain holes, in what I call holes in their sound that gets weaker or less resonant as it goes higher, for instance. And you can get away with it and make the pitch on the trumpet. Okay, so that sound, which we all have heard from students and other people, is still being produced on the trumpet. But if I were to play the same way on the burp, it would end up like this. probably about halfway up, you wouldn't hear anything, and you'd just be hearing air. But on the trumpet, you get away with it. But now, if I make that sound resonate on the burp, so maintaining the air speed and the air pressure into the instrument, doing it the same way. You can see that I transferred that flow, that connection between the notes that I had on the burp, which is a wonderful way to hear if you're doing that or not. Connections are really the more important thing than beginnings. The connections are what gives you the legato line and gives you the ability to put the articulation on top of the airstream.
So by playing on the burp, it really emphasizes being able to listen for those connections between the notes in a way that just playing on the trumpet sometimes we can gloss over and not hear quite so clearly.
Exactly. And whether it be on a passage without articulation, or both of those require me to listen to the end of the note before the beginning of the next note and make the pitch change at the same time.
Okay.
So you really can fine-tune what you're doing here and here. And if you're having a problem with a passage, most likely it's because of bad air production, air usage. And you go back to the burp, always take a step back, use the burp. If the burp's not working, go back to lip buzzing. If the lip buzzing's not working, do your breathing exercises until you find out where the problem is. Then you have a methodical way to fix the problem. You're not just treating symptoms, but you're really treating the disease.